Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 18 of the Audible Farm podcast. I'm your host. My name is Peter Stockdale. This week I'm sitting down with Emery Brown. We actually kind of grew up from somewhere near the same area. I believe he's from the Fort Dodge area. We talk about that a little bit in the podcast. The two of us have known each other for quite a while, about 2 years or so, but we've never really sat down and talked a whole lot about what other music he's played in the past. And I know him as the guitarist and singer for the Sleepover, but a lot of other people might know him as the keyboardist for some other bands. He played in Dresden Style, Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, and Troposphere. We talk about those bands a little bit in the upcoming podcast and how they got their names and who was in them and what kind of music they played. And he used to play keyboards. He plays a little bit more guitar now. I'm sure he would be more than willing to play keyboards somewhere, but this is a really good podcast. We talk about traveling around, playing some shows. The Sleepover played a show in Austin recently. I mean, I think it was last year, but that's pretty awesome. Playing shows out of state is always a fun time. So, stick around, listen to the podcast. He tells some fun stories in here from his past, so it's pretty awesome. This is episode number 18 with Emery Brown from the Sleepover.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
What is going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, pretty good, Peter.
Awesome. Sitting down today with Emery Brown. You play guitar and write songs for the Sleepover at the current moment, correct?
Yep, and sing.
Oh, a singer too. Yes, sir. Play that guitar. What I only know you as the Sleepover guy, like that's my introduction to you and how I've known you over the years as that guy. But you've been in a handful of other bands too, such as we were talking earlier about Dresden Style and
Yep.
Troposphere, Rhonda is a Dead Bitch. Let's start somewhere near the beginning. How did you decide to become a musician, or like what was your first instrument?
Yeah, my first instrument was church organ.
That's pretty
I
awesome.
was 6 years old, and we were all in a room, and my mom got lessons for me to learn good old green sleeves and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I got. I wanted to play guitar ever since I was 6. I think AC/DC probably was the first inspiration to play like rock music and my dad's Rolling Stones records and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then kind of from there, I didn't really listen to much music that what I could call my own, as far as like that I sought out and got until I was maybe like 12 or 13.
Yeah, what was I feel like that's like the common age most people start to seek out their own stuff. What did you choose?
Yeah, so I listened to The Offspring, Tool,
Yeah, man.
Metallica, Pantera. I kind of went more the route of rock than metal.
Yeah.
But I always have liked, the classics.
Oh yeah. I mean, Offspring, I feel like, was just one of those bands that anybody that was at like that slight adolescent age could kind of glom onto, because they were like a serious band, but all their songs were kind of jokey and,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it kind of started out pretty much with them. I understand. Dexter couldn't get into the singer of Offspring. Him and Noodles, their guitar player, I think.
Yep.
And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were trying to get into a Dwarves concert, and Dwarves are pretty freaking intense. Their songs are mostly obscenities. They have the cover of the one that I'm thinking of is like naked ladies like doused in like pig blood or something.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's kind of interesting they came out of that. They're the typical California band, whatever. But years later, I ended up getting into the Dwarves through a friend of mine, and I think there's that too fat to fuck song
Yeah.
that you guys play.
Yep.
That it kind of reminds me of a song off of the Dwarves
That's pretty
album.
funny.
So you should check them out if
Yeah,
you haven't heard of them.
yeah, I'll definitely have to. I've never heard of them, so that's pretty cool. So you started out with, what sounds like a nice introduction to what you got going on. Like you have your Metallicas, your Panteras, and you got kind of your punky bands. What was the first song you picked up on a guitar and learned?
I think probably Iron Butterfly, along with everybody else.
Yeah,
You know?
it seems like there's a handful of first songs most people learn.
And for me too, I was still in keyboards pretty much until college, like just playing piano and things like that off and on. But I didn't get a guitar till I was in college. I think I was like 18, and my parents finally got me a guitar, and I didn't quit school. I ended up going through it.
Yeah, that's good,
because
man.
I knew I wasn't that good.
That's smart, man.
And I didn't take any lessons. I think I was about 5 years in before I picked up a lesson or two, and that was just a guy at work from a local like Fort Dodge band called Ski Band.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yep.
And they Dean Morris was his name. He's not alive anymore, but he was a big influence on me because he played guitar, he sang, and played keyboard live.
Yeah, man.
For the shows. And so he was a big influence because I always liked keyboard synthesizers, and I always wanted to be better at guitar.
Yeah.
So he said, "All right, you pick some songs." So the first song I learned from him, which I would almost consider the first song that I actually took the time and learned all the parts to, was
Gonna draw a blank.
Yeah,
on
it's
it, of
gonna draw a
course.
blank. It's Sublime, the song where they're robbing a liquor store. It's like 19 something.
You're asking the wrong person. I am not a Sublime fan. Like, not even a little bit.
Yeah, but it kind of everything kind of reflects back to like songs that I enjoy, with maybe the exception of Offspring. Like, I like a lot of story songs.
Yeah, man.
And so like knocking over a liquor store and trying to get whatever, you like just getting into trouble and stuff like that. Like, whether you yourself got into trouble in the past, or you just have a wild imagination. That kind of brings me there.
Yeah, man. I mean, some of that. I was just doing a podcast with Kobe Murray from the Astro Bastards, and we were talking about like song topics and how sometimes even the like most shallow of songs can have like a super deep meaning if you start to like look into it, and it's actually kind of cool. I mean, a song about just knocking over a liquor store probably isn't like 100% just about knocking over a liquor store.
Yeah, they probably. I mean, I'm sure they got into a little bit of trouble, maybe getting busted like with weed or something, but I don't really know that they're criminals. I don't think people really think they're much more than dirty hippies if you don't like Sublime.
Yeah,
so.
No kidding.
And I've been accused of that, and I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself either, but
yeah, I think that's like maybe the one reason I didn't take to Sublime so much was they just seemed like the hippie band, and maybe just too cliche. I'm not sure, but I don't know. That's just my preference, I guess. But for some reason, I just never really took too much to Sublime, and I don't know why, but that was just my personal preference, I guess. So you said you played keyboards longer than you've played guitar. Was there any time you ever tried to like play any popular songs on the keyboards?
Yep, and the first song too, like, was probably Inagata Devita.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess just learning popular songs, and that's probably only been up to maybe a few years ago where I've actually done it as a band and stuck with it. But I had Guitar World and all that kind of stuff as early as I had a guitar, and I'd go online to all the tab sites and stuff, and I learned on organ and piano, so like tabs actually didn't help me that much.
Yeah.
I think for the longest time I thought like 1 was 6 and 6 was 1. And I
Yeah.
was like, I am the crappiest guitar player ever
Yeah,
because
man.
I was playing it upside
Upside
down.
down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So like for me, when it came down to like learning songs, if it had some chords in it, like a lot of even online tab sites, they have like this, it's C7 and all that.
Yep.
That actually helped me, but I got bored and I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to learn other people's songs because I had songs that I wanted to write.
Yeah, man.
So even though my skill level really wasn't there, tried writing tons of crappy songs, without really knowing how to play guitar. And I think the biggest achievement I had made in guitar was figuring out how the keyboard and the guitar related to each other.
Yeah, man.
And that took maybe about 2.5 years. I was just finishing college from a tech school, and yeah, I had started figuring that out, and then I was like, okay, I figured that out. Now I need to find out how to not look at my hands the entire time that I'm playing guitar.
Yeah, that's another
So
tough one.
I would just like, play to like candlelight, and eventually just play in the dark. I know that sounds weird, but that worked for me really well. And all those skills kind of later on helped me in when I actually got into bands, which was many years after my, intro to guitar at 18.
Yep.
And I think it was like just not finding the people that like the same kind of music.
Yeah.
And like Iowa, there is, a select amount of musicians, and in Fort Dodge, Iowa, there's even fewer. Until this podcast, I realized there's actually been a lot more.
Yeah, there's
I just wasn't in the same circles.
exactly.
So trying to remember how old I was. I was like, I think, early to mid 20s when I was trying out for bands, but just message to anyone that's trying to get started is like, just because you try out for a band and you don't get it, keep trying out for bands, because they just might not be the right fit for you, or you might not be the right fit for them. And I found that out, like, I tried first singing, and I hadn't learned how to scream or anything like that yet.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody wanted back then.
Yep.
The late 90s, early 20s, like.
Yeah, it was all metal.
Yep.
Yelling metal.
Yeah.
Or like Drowning Pool or something like that.
And I would try out for these bands because I liked, heavier stuff. Like Under Oath was pretty cool because it had synthesizers and like, post-hardcore or whatever you want to call it. And but I couldn't, I could sing like, some Tool songs, but that's, none of the crazier, throat type stuff. But and same with guitar. Like I started playing with, thinking I wanted to play with metal guys because I was listening to like heavier stuff, and is pretty evident that we were both at different levels. So
yeah.
Also, like, for me it was Craigslist. That was kind of what got me into it and got me into like some pretty, fun, but strange kind of tryout processes. Anywhere from like getting driven out to like the east side and like a half burnt down building, like singing in a kitchen, and no working water, bathroom and stuff. I think that was my first tryout. And I feel like
can't get worse than
that.
that.
It can't get worse than that. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And like, when I hear like Tom, I saw Tom Petty before he died at the Wells Fargo. And like one of the stories, he's like, him and his guitar player, like he went in and they were just like, what, who is this guy? Like you're kind of, it's not a big negative if you come into a situation and you're like, what, like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Like, who is this guy?
Exactly.
Like that could actually be the thing that takes you somewhere.
Tabula rasa. It's that clean slate, man. That's it's like a common theme I bring up because it's like around Des Moines there are a ton of different bands, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton, but it seems like every show there's usually like one or two bands that are don't really fit the bill of like four or five bands, and I always feel like that's kind of a weird thing, but a good thing at the same time because it gives you that clean slate, you know.
Yeah.
You know, if you go in there and somebody's like, I've never heard of these guys because they don't play in the same circles because you're not a metal band and you play in a punk band or something.
Right.
You show up and you bring it, then everyone's like, holy crap, these guys are awesome, you know.
Yeah.
I would have never gone to one of these shows, but since they opened up for one of my buddies' bands, you know, you get one of those types of situations going, and I always thought those were pretty cool to, you know, just jump into a place where you might not think you're going to fit in and try it out because you never know.
Yeah, and with that too, one of my friends that I met in college, he had told me to he and I had like totally different music. He liked Stuck Mojo, which was like a local band,
Stuck Mojo?
and I was like,
Stuck Mojo from Atlanta?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there was one of my favorite bands of all time, man. I
Yeah?
was super into like I've met all the guys from Stuck Mojo.
Yeah, Josh Sinclair, I think, is one of the guys.
Hit me up.
maybe.
Let's start a Stuck Mojo cover band. I've been
Yeah.
looking to do that forever.
And I wouldn't be in it. Just it's a personal preference.
Yeah, man.
But so he wanted to take me to like Java Joe's and see these guys or whatever.
Yep.
So I started seeing like open mic nights and stuff, and I was like, I think the biggest part for me for wanting to make music is, one is to be around music and get to see awesome bands.
Yep.
And also I just was like, you know, it might not be that hard. You know, like
Yeah.
I might be underselling myself, and I think people, when they think they're not good enough, that's like the biggest. You know, you're your own worst enemy. Like you're not gonna play a show or have the cojones to try it. You know, if you think you're not good enough, I think most people don't get on stage thinking they're gonna get laughed at. But I mean, you know, everybody's
Yeah.
got that story.
Exactly.
But you gotta start somewhere.
Exactly.
And Iowa has so much talent with musicians. Like I would go to these shows of I eventually went to shows like the Muse, I think a lot,
Yep.
before I had kids, and I would see all these bands, Teen Pussy, I saw Family Unit, and all those guys I'm friends with now.
That's awesome.
And you end up going to enough of these shows, and you definitely become a fan of local music.
Oh yeah.
And you get to see something my friend Jim says a lot is like you know, you can listen to the radio, but you've heard it all 1,000 times. Like
Exactly.
you're listening to fresh music that just came out,
Exactly.
and you get to interact with the musicians.
Yeah.
Like that should be exciting enough to go to shows.
Exactly.
Especially if you're into making music, because I had the first Craigslist ad that brought me to an audition where I ended up getting the gig, so to speak, was Troposphere, and that
Yep.
was a shoegaze band, which think of like Phil Spector,
Okay.
back in the Wall of Sound days, which was
alright.
really and it was really like a big hotel room where all these musicians, like whether they're session musicians or not,
Yeah.
like all making music like in a hotel, like with super thin walls.
Yeah.
So things would start sounding a lot the same,
Uh-huh.
you know, but at the same time, it was this big sound, like you couldn't stop it because the radio was just hit with all these huge numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things he liked to do is, you know, lots of reverb and all that good stuff.
Uh-huh.
So shoegaze is like you need reverbed out guitar, preferably like overflowing pedal board with
Yeah.
way too much stuff than you really need.
Yeah.
And then fuzz is always good, and organ. So
Yep.
that's where I came in.
All right.
So he just said, "Can you play a G chord?" And I played a G chord. He's like, "All right, you're in." And I was like, "Holy crap! Like this is not how any of the other auditions have
That's
ever gone ever."
That's hilarious.
You know, it's usually like, you know, a bunch of just BS, and then you eventually play music, and then you're
Yeah.
done.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, it's not gonna work out, but we should be friends or whatever. And it's like, okay, yeah,
Yep.
I came here to make music. Anyway, so the funny thing too about that band is I walked in the front door and I saw who was sitting on the couch, and it was like, hey, that's the drummer of Teen Pussy.
Yeah.
That's the guitar player of Teen Pussy.
Yeah.
That's and I like identified them
Oh yeah.
right away as like I saw you play, and I remember being inspired by that a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that they told me later that like if you couldn't have played, it would have been fine, because like the fact that you knew who we were, and stuff, like was huge.
Yeah. So
And-
making those connections does matter.
yeah, and when you play around enough in different bands, you'll find out that it is a pretty small community.
Yeah. It's
There
really.
are a lot of bands, but the fact is a lot of them are in 4 or 5 different bands.
Yep.
And
some bands don't last forever, so
a lot of bands don't last.
so you end up with a situation where it's like, well, he was in this band, and then this year he's in this band.
Yep.
But and that does happen. And we were talking about that a little bit earlier about sometimes it just takes the right meshing of people,
Yep.
and that sometimes that comes over ability, because if you can find people that can stand next to each other and stand it for long enough, that's sometimes
Or at least while you're playing music.
Yeah.
I've had bands we don't hang out,
uh-huh.
or even after we're done playing, we're off like talking to our own friend. Like we have
Yeah.
very different personalities, but I get along with pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
But as far as like everything sweet has kind of a means to an end. Like Troposphere, we recorded at a place. It was Scott O'Gara's house. He was in a band called Biaudi Paoli, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong. And there's still some active musicians around from that band.
Oh, cool.
And they're around. But we I have an old like Roland synthesizer that I've used forever, and I was in the studio and I turned it on, and it didn't nothing happened.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I was like first recording anything ever, aside from like maybe a 4-track, like borrowing from the video production guy
Yeah.
in school, but ended up just being a fuse.
Oh,
And
well, that's
so
good.
I ended up like doing MIDI, which is like, for those that don't know, it's just like you can record the notes directly into the computer.
Yep.
And then later on put sounds to it.
Yeah.
So
Think like it's almost like synthesizer keyboard, but that you can choose what the
Yes.
synthesizer is after the fact.
yeah, so I was stuck with whatever sounds they had initially.
Yep.
But I got that fuse thing figured out the second day of recording.
Oh, that's cool.
So they're able to run it out through my rig and back.
Oh yeah,
so
reamping it. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like reamping a guitar, exactly.
Yep.
And that's the sweet thing about today's musicians is a lot of people are doing stuff like that. They don't like these plugins, and
Yep.
they'll record something on like Casio or something, anything that has MIDI out, and then they'll go and run it, through some awesome vintage synthesizers or whatever. And for me, I always liked all sorts of types of music. Like synthesizers are generally like dance, like
Yep.
new wave, or like
Uh-huh.
a lot of they're like, people have asked me like, oh, let's do synthesizer stuff. Why don't you just make electronic music? And I'm like, I would, but I tried before I even had guitar, and I used like Fruity Loops and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I hated the process of not having anything to turn or slide or whatever.
Yeah.
And there weren't really great interfaces back then.
Yeah.
So for me, I just got turned off to it and thought it was, I don't like making. I took that as, I don't like making electronic music.
Yeah.
And in reality, like before I started the project I'm in now, I was actually doing electronic music, and probably what I would be doing now if I didn't start up this recent band is doing a computerless setup for electronic music, which is a lot to do for carrying
Yeah.
to shows and stuff,
Yeah,
but
man.
for just doing it in your your apartment or house is anybody can do it. It just costs a lot of money.
Yeah. I went to a music shop when I was in California a couple weeks ago, and I hopped on the turntables because they had some, ones and twos sitting there. So I threw on the headphones and I'm scratching some stuff. They got a laptop there with I don't know what the interface was,
Mhm.
and I just double clicked a couple songs, set them to the same BPM, and started
Right.
scratching away. Then I was like looking back at everything. I'm like, oh, this is a $2,000 turntable and $600 headphones and a $2,000 laptop. And I'm all right. I'll put this stuff down and walk away
Yeah.
because I don't need to. I don't need to play $4,000 worth of equipment, But it is pretty fun though. Making. I always just called it beat boop music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally dig it. As far as creating it, I feel like there's like two different versions that you can make it like live, like you said, with sliders and stuff to turn,
Yeah.
or you can just do it all with a computer and almost nothing else. And that's not really that much fun to me. I never thought so.
Yeah, if anyone ever wants to talk about like electronic music or wanting to do something similar like that, I would totally do like a side project thing where it's just, hands-on, no computer, doing electronic music, or even just working with like a old school DJ,
Yeah.
like with vinyl and stuff. I
Yep.
know that's kind of expensive and it takes a lot to haul your stuff around, but like even setting like matching the BPMs, like you're physical. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you can slow the motor,
Yep.
but like if you ever watch any of those old DJs, not like scratching DJs, but just matching the tempos by
Yeah.
like using their
All they're
fingers to
doing is
slow it
yeah,
to
because
find a spot,
yeah.
you would even see them put like little like not white out, but like little tape, a little piece of tape to
Hmm.
find out where they want their sample to be.
Yep.
So it's like, hip hop evolved with that, MPC where you can load samples into it and
Uh
stuff
huh.
like that. But all that stuff always interested me. I just didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah, man.
So I just played, keyboard,
Yeah.
so
I don't blame you either. It's there's so much you can do with the keyboard too now because I mean they make those super compact ones that are just like 2 octaves and then you can
holy crap. Yeah.
you can send it through and then shift it later. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, I want it to be an octave higher than this and I don't have all those keys, but the computer can tell it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and don't be afraid too. Like even if you want to use something like that with live, like I've used modules that don't have keyboards live.
yeah.
I used to have like an old Moog Voyager that didn't have a keyboard. It was just the brains of it and had all the switches and knobs.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun, and you just use whatever keyboard you want with it, as long as it has a way to input a MIDI signal.
Yep.
Whether you want to do it from your computer or you want to just play it live, you can do that. Like
Mhm.
even if you have a little one with little baby keys, as long as you can plug in something else into it, which a lot of those cheaper synthesizers they don't have. Um, that's where they kind of had to cheap out somewhere.
Yep.
A lot of it's the space,
Mhm.
and there's these like there's adapters and things you can use or
Oh yeah.
whatever. But so Troposphere, we recorded our first album, actually EP, and it was Winter Is Here. Had like 4 songs on it, I think, um, and it was like a little 45,
Mhm.
and I had never had really, recorded anything, let alone straight to to vinyl
Oh,
and
that's pretty
stuff, and that
sweet.
was really neat. And that was just kind of the way the guy that ran the band, Jason Warden, he he liked to do things. He
Yeah.
wanted to release on there. So I don't I don't know. I know we played some shows as Troposphere. It was just like a handful, but we rehearsed, and when the album came out, we broke up
Oh, that's
before we
just
supported it. So
super
I
bummer.
had a whole stack,
Yeah.
because that's how I got paid.
Uh
I
huh.
got paid in vinyl.
Yep.
Um, and so that band broke up, and I just kept going to local shows. And there's this band called Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, and I heard that some of the guys from Troposphere were in there,
Uh huh.
and I went and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This is like punk rock, psychedelic rock.
Yep.
It was super awesome, and I went to, I think it was their first and second show. The first show they said, "Hey, you want to be in this band?" I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of like had a semi-sour experience because I really wanted to support an album, right? That
Yep.
was like one of my goals.
Yep.
And so like I think it was the second show, he gave me a Teen Pussy vinyl
Oh,
from
cool.
that band that I mentioned a long time ago. I
Yep.
saw him in, and it said, I have it still. I think the ink got smudged on it a little bit, but it's like, please, please, Emery, join Rhonda's a Dead Bitch. I don't know what I'll do with this band. Like just
Yeah.
like a total like, please join. Like
Yeah.
you're I think you would really fit. And I was like, punk band, synthesizer. At the time, I didn't know of Suicide or I had listened to Devo, but like I hadn't really known punk bands associated with synthesizers.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. And I just show up, just whatever. And I hooked up some of the old sampler DJ type equipment that I had appropriated when I was trying to get that route.
Yeah.
And I used the multi effects from it.
Okay.
So I ran some. So what my sound was in Troposphere was very different
Uh-huh.
in Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, because I use a Dimebag Daryl Crybaby wah through it,
Yep.
through organ,
Oh, that's cool.
and did drones and stuff. And there's so much of Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, like 100 plus. Almost, I learned almost 200 songs in that band, I think.
Oh, crazy.
And granted, a lot were short because they were punk rock songs, but it was so much fun. Luke Crow played drums in that.
Okay.
He's an amazing drummer. He lives in the Iowa City area now.
Oh, cool.
And I think he plays like, I think, just for fun now.
Uh-huh.
But one of the best drummers, aside from maybe Clint, that I've worked
Yeah.
I've worked with. But at any rate, that is a band I do miss. We had the name Rhonda's a Dead Bitch was from something that was sprayed on a bus bench downtown.
Okay. Yeah. In Des
Like,
Moines.
oh yeah, but I think if I remember right, Jason told me it wasn't spray paint, it was like lipstick or something.
Okay.
So it had taken like 5 things of lipstick to write Rhonda's a Dead Bitch on there. And a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time to
Yeah.
do that. And then like one day, like he heard out his office window, and wherever he worked at the time, he's like, I'm gonna kill you, Rhonda, like and shit. Like there was something between two ladies that one of them
didn't like Rhonda.
Yeah, one of them did not like Rhonda, and that was where that name came from.
That's
And we
hilarious.
were, as a band, we did a lot of experimentation. Like,
Yeah.
our songs, like, we had crazy frequencies in there that might make your ears bleed or just not want you to come back to a show.
Yeah.
And like that was always, I think, the leader of the band's idea is like, we're abrasive.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, fuck you.
Yeah.
The people that like us are really going to like us, but
yeah.
we weren't out there to bring fans in.
Uh-huh.
And towards the end of Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, people would come up to us, like, like just around town and be like, that was a fucking sweet show the other day or whatever,
Awesome.
and
Yeah.
I recognize you and stuff. And there, I don't know what happened one year with the City View. I don't know if like someone like got threatened to put us in there or whatever, but we ended up in there as like one of the bands, right, to be voted on or whatever.
Yeah.
And we got voted over the Nadas
Oh,
as
crazy.
best band in Des Moines.
Oh, that's insane.
And people always, that was the other thing, people are always like, how the hell did that happen? And we don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, I don't know. Like, I think my wife voted once, but that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah.
So like,
And for those people that don't know, City View is a magazine in Des Moines.
yeah.
And they, it's like every year they used to have something like that. Do they still do
like
that?
best burger and best
Yeah.
whatever,
And
best venue.
they're usually, pretty spot on with everything that goes on. They
Yep.
pick the best of the best and throw them in there with a little competition. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome that you beat the Nadas because they're probably one of like the premier bands around the state
Ye-
that everybody just digs so much.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's your style of
Again,
music, but
not a fan personally, but
but
like
that
they-
doesn't mean they're not
no,
good.
right.
Yeah.
They played our college, and I was like, oh man, I'm attending this super cool business school that has this has Nadas or this band called the Nadas, and they're supposed to be super great.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh man, this is definitely not for me. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely people into it. And then so like years later, it's like, oh, because Nadas I think win every year
Yep.
in City View,
Oh yeah.
and we had won, and I was just like, oh my god, this is
That's crazy.
like we got to step our game up.
Yeah,
you
no
know?
kidding. Yeah.
So we got a new singer, Tai P, who I don't know if you know Peter, but
Nope.
I know the Dark Mirror guys do.
Yeah.
He's still playing with those guys, I believe, in a band called Witch Elm.
Okay. Yeah.
But which I still have yet to see, but
I haven't seen them either.
I
but
don't think they play that often.
most certainly heard of them though. So that's props to them.
Yeah, so Ron's Dead Bitch, we ended up going and we've actually released 2 vinyl records. I think both you can get at Triple Z.
Cool.
One is Laos, and that was like Vietnamese.
Yep.
The location
Uh-huh.
Laos, right?
Yep.
And that's a really weird psychedelic record.
Yeah.
The Witch album, which was the second and last album, which came out after we broke up again. I think that was a 2.5-year stint or whatever. But we used to play a lot, and we were starting to get a following. And The Witch is kind of like a black metal album.
Oh, cool.
And that was a super challenge for me too, because I when I played that, or learned the songs off there, like I had to play keyboard totally different,
Yeah.
Like, it was a challenge because we were
Uh-huh.
switching time signatures all the time and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it was cool. In those 2 bands, Rhonda's Dead Bitch and Troposphere, I both had parts kind of written out, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
room for
You just
flavor,
freelancing your own stuff.
yeah. But so after towards the end of Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, we were not playing very much.
Yeah.
And I really missed playing live. Like, that's, if you know me, that's like I like to perform. Like, that's one of my favorite things
that's
to
the
do.
best part about being a musician.
Put any instrument in my hand, like I'll find a way to try to make it entertaining for you.
Yep. Yep.
And I might not play it that well, but I'll find a way to
Make it
entertain you with
entertaining.
it. Yeah. And it helps to surround yourself with really good musicians. 'Cause,
Exactly.
like, I don't know where I would be.
Because it makes you make yourself better.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, like
it
not
challenges you.
only do you look good standing next to him, because that's always my joke. Like with Three
Yeah.
Finger Betty, it's like, look at all these guys I get to stand next to. They rip,
Yep.
and I just get to look good and hold a fancy guitar. And
Yep. So I was the head in the crowd for a band called Dresden Style, and they asked me a few times. I was in Ron's a Dead Bitch at the time, and I said, no, I don't think I just had my first kid. Like, I don't think I can join a second thing. Ron's a Dead Bitch practiced twice a week. Like,
oh, nice.
for a band that seems so experimental and like would give you a different show every time, because we would do a completely different set. A lot of times play none of the same songs we did before.
Yeah.
Like, we'd constantly be barraging you with new music. But
Uh-huh.
anyways, so Dresden Style, they played like St. Patty's Day at the Fremont, and like they kind of had a regular gig. Gaslamp had just opened. I had played there once with Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, and I think my first gig with Dresden Style was, again, I played keyboard organ there, but they were more like rock and roll, straight up, like, old 70s kind of influenced indie rock stuff with organ, like that kind of stuff. We had a bass player, and I think I practiced with him a few times, and they ended up kicking him out. I didn't know that when they were asking everybody about that, and I was like, it's your band. I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. I don't know anybody. I'm brand new.
Yep.
And so I think he was asking me that because I ended up having to play bass
Uh-huh.
keyboard like the Doors, and then also playing melody and textures.
Okay.
And in that band, they didn't tell me what to play.
Uh-huh.
And some of them knew kind of like um, the classic stylings of music, but most of them just
Uh-huh.
learned by ear or just by figuring it out. So if I asked them like, "What are you playing there?" they might not be able to tell me.
Yep.
But because of what I learned in college with playing keyboard and guitar, I was able to
You kind of follow
to
along.
to pick it up. Like
Yep.
it was like every step that you take kind of prepares you for the next step.
Uh-huh.
And that is so true. I think no matter who you are or where you're coming from, like right now, like you might not be where you want to be, but just set the goal like of just like if you want to play in a different band, especially locally, like be that head in the crowd because
Yeah.
you'll get noticed.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
especially if you're in another band, because
Uh-huh.
everybody's always needing something,
Uh-huh.
and it's like
Yeah, and I mean, nothing's ever set in stone with a
no,
band. Like, if you see a guy playing guitar and singing, it's probably because they don't have a singer.
right,
It's not that they don't want a singer and it's not that they need a singer because that guy's doing that, but
yep,
sometimes that's the situation, and, just give or take whatever. You only have one guitarist in your band. Maybe you need two and you just
yeah.
can't find one. You don't know. And just because they're not asking for it doesn't mean they're not looking, and you never know. I mean, you just never know.
Well, and I mean, music has is not. There's no rule that shouldn't be broken. It's
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
you got to try it. Like I saw Skin of Earth. They don't have a singer. They have two guitar players and a drummer. Rob Ogg's in a whole bunch of different bands.
Uh-huh.
And uh, Andrew Smeltzer from Traffic Death, the bass player in that
Uh-huh.
band, like he wanted to be in Skin of Earth. Like he was kind of that head in the crowd. Like kept saying, "Please, can I play bass for you guys?"
Yep.
And he wasn't in that band for very long because Traffic Death was born,
Yep.
and they're pretty big
Oh, yeah.
locally,
Yep.
and he added something, but at the same time, Skin of Earth has always been, two guitar players and a drummer, and it sounds huge,
Yeah.
like tuning and what gear they're going through, and like great musicians they are,
Oh, yeah.
But
Um, let's. I wanted to backtrack for a second. You were talking about how you got a couple vinyls available at Triple Z.
Yep.
And for everybody that's not Des Moines area person, Triple Z is one of the record stores here in town. Correct?
yep, on Ingersoll.
Yeah, they got a lot of local musicians stuff in there as well as like used records and things like that. Correct?
Yep.
Because I mean, I haven't been to Triple Z. I mean, sorry, Triple Z, but I haven't been there in probably like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I'm glad to hear it's like at least still around and still doing
Oh yeah.
what they set out to do
They have
from
a
the get go.
they have a pretty fair selection of local music. Um, I know Red Rooster.
Yep, that was the other one I remember.
He's a huge fan of music, and I have my current project in there, which I'll get to in a minute. And then another place, Marv's. You had
Yep.
mentioned. I think you can find some cool stuff there. I don't know if he has local music or not, but
Yeah, I've never been in there. I'm stoked.
but the Vinyl Cup Records, which is kind of close to where we're doing this at,
Yep.
is really awesome, and they are definitely a place you should have your music at. They don't really have CDs though, so if you make vinyl
Yeah,
and you have local vinyl, get it in there.
definitely.
He, as far as like cuts that shops take, which they every right they should,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they got the storefront.
Um,
They got to pay for the space.
he's the like I like having the records everywhere, but I want to get him there because he wants to give back.
Yeah.
Like he's has shows in his place sometimes.
Oh, that's cool.
Like acoustic kind of shows
Yeah.
and stuff, but buy from there so it sticks around.
Yeah,
you
no
know?
kidding. Well, that's what's awesome to hear that like these because I started doing like record collecting maybe about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and I started hitting up like Triple Z, Red Rooster. I'd go to like the record. They used to have little meetups at like the hotels and shit around town, and they'd have like everybody would set out all their like records they were going to sell and whatever, and you'd go pick up like, everyone's got 90 copies of Night Moves Bob Seger, but I don't
Right.
have one, so I'll take this one for $1, and it's
And he puts in the guy that runs that, the name's fleeting me at the moment, but he goes to all those and he like picks a great collection, and
yeah,
like as if he was buying for himself,
uh-huh,
and everyone, all of his friends, and he does that.
that's awesome.
He also does like like you can buy a spot to have your records there,
Uh-huh,
and you
yep,
keep 100% of the profits from it.
yep,
So it's like a one-time fee. I don't know if it's changed, but it's pretty reasonable
that's awesome.
just to have it there, and your initials are in there along with the price.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
when I walked in there, there's a section called local music, and I was like, sweet, but where's the local music? Because it was like Rolling Stones, like Alabama. There was some like replacements. I'm like, these
Uh-huh.
guys,
They're not local.
no. It's like, oh, they're local people in Des Moines that are selling music.
Yep, yep,
So there's a separate section for that. you
yeah,
know?
that's pretty funny.
And so you can find deals, and he stays out of their pricing. So if they want to price it super cheap,
yeah,
cheaper than his, or way more expensive than his,
there's always a crazy
yeah.
mishmash of stuff there. There's usually like metal records and like, yeah, I mean everything from the 70s and 80s for rock, and I mean just pretty much most of the records you would think would be there, plus a bunch of the ones you might want to find there. Because I remember buying some like Maiden records there, and they have like imports and all sorts of other stuff going on.
Yep.
So that's pretty awesome. Like it's awesome to hear that you got music in all these shops. It's
Yeah.
even crazier to hear you got it on vinyl.
And don't forget Underground Rock Shop.
Underground
too.
Rock Shop, yeah. Steve Ratcliffe.
Yeah, he's the only store that I've been in where instead of consignment, like what I was kind of talking about,
Yeah.
he was just like, so what do you want to sell these for? Okay.
Oh, so he just like bought them from you
He
outright.
buys them from you upright. So I don't have anything there right now because they got sold out or stolen. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I know the guy that I handed them to. He wanted to listen to it, so he like bought he's like, I'm gonna whatever,
Yeah.
But yeah, and they have shows there too. I still have yet to play there, but
Yeah.
it's something to consider. I mean, you might not be getting as much as you might be from there,
But still, it's
because I feel like it was close to 50%,
Uh-huh.
So if you have CDs you need to get in stores and you don't want them to just sit collecting dust, that might be something that you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to Dresden Style. I was with them for another 2.5 years. I was doing both of those, Rhonda's Dead Bitch and Dresden Style, at the same time.
Yeah.
We didn't record anything on there with the exception of a friend of mine, Dan Hutchinson. He did a Des Moines Volume 1 comp album of a bunch of local bands.
Awesome.
A lot of those local bands aren't around anymore, so you
Yeah.
really need to get out to shows and see them while they're still around.
Yeah.
But it's cool that there's a record that has a Dresden Style song on there.
Yeah, it's like
because that's all I have recorded.
That's like a snapshot in time.
We were pretty much just a live band.
That's awesome.
That didn't play covers, and we still had a pretty decent following. So it's, like you don't have to be a cover band to get people to come to your shows. You just have to be available.
Yeah.
And you have to get to the people that want to see your shows.
Bingo. Yep. It's all about finding the place to play and playing in front of the right people.
Yep. So Dresden Style ended up petering out because, the lead singer kind of didn't want to do music anymore.
Uh-huh.
Which I still can't understand, just because, like, I have to make music. It's
Yeah.
not like some people, I hear it every now and again, like, oh, I just didn't want to make music anymore. Like, I feel like you're ingrained with it, and you're going to stick with it. And to a certain extent, some people want to just maybe do it a couple times just to say they did. But anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I made music for a while and quit making music just for the simple fact that, like, A, I didn't know who to make it with, and, like, B, the people I had around to make music with, I didn't really want to make music with, and it was just, like, a personal choice, so I just quit playing music. But, I mean, I don't know if I ever really 100% stopped. Every now and then I'd pick a guitar up and play a song, but yeah, I mean, I took like 5 years off and didn't play like
Yeah.
almost at all. Like surely didn't learn anything
I wouldn't
new.
have guessed either, because I mean I didn't know you before, but
Yeah.
you definitely have came into your spot.
Yeah, I've definitely found it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's something weird though too about like joining a band and trying to figure out exactly where you fit in.
Yep. And life happens too. Like I I went from playing 2-3 times a week, to like
Yeah.
just playing maybe once a week.
Uh-huh.
But it's just important to keep doing it if you can make it happen. But
Yeah, it's not like riding a bike. You can't just like stop and pick it back up and be just as good as you were.
yeah,
Believe it or not, it takes that constant playing and just getting after it.
yep,
Whatever it is, you just a little practice, play with your band, play with some buddies. You just gotta keep your knife sharp, I guess.
yep. So when Dresden Style stopped, um, shortly after Dark Mirror stopped playing
Yep.
too,
Yep.
and I was always wanted to make music with Marco, the bass
Mhm.
player. I kind of became friends with him.
Oh yeah.
Started just being ahead in the crowd kind of thing too. Like
Yep.
I saw him first at GDP, which was a thing downtown.
Yep.
Um, it still is, but they used to have it at the Holiday Inn, I think.
I think so.
And they had it where there was several rooms at one time that had different bands playing different band playing in each one, so you could literally, if you didn't like it,
You just
walk
go to a
across the
different
street.
room.
So you could find your flavor pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a mini festival that way. A lot of those
Uh-huh.
outdoor festivals have side stages,
Yep.
so it was like that, but you get in the skywalk and you find this place, and
That's pretty
you
sweet.
get to meet a lot of people and
Oh yeah.
see a lot of faces. But yeah, Dark Mirror got a hold of me that way. But
That's pretty sweet.
I was just an instant fan.
Uh-huh.
Back when Marco still wore cowboy boots and he had long locks of hair.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, But so, anyways,
I used to have hair too, man.
uh, so I messaged Marco. I said, "Hey, kind of, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I had written some songs, um, in my basement,
Uh-huh.
and I was playing with some guys off Craigslist like that I didn't know, because I wanted to try that just
Yep.
to play with new people.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of them said, I'm going through a divorce or whatever, and so he ended up stopping, and I ended up with songs I had wrote.
Yeah.
So I decided that they can't stay in the basement. Like, there's no point of just like writing songs and leaving them
Yeah.
in one spot. I mean, now you can at least upload them to the internet, I guess, but
Yeah.
to do it proper, you want to, for me personally, for writing songs, like, I want to play them live,
Yeah.
and watch them evolve, and then go in the
Exactly.
studio. There's some people that, like, I don't get how, like, some modern musicians, like, they have like a record contract to go and record, an album. So
Yeah.
they have gobs of studio time,
Uh-huh.
and they sometimes don't even know what they're gonna record, and they just start like plucking away at stuff, and then they're stuck playing those songs for
Yep.
a
Exactly.
tour or a tour and a half, or if they end up making it,
Exactly.
for the rest of their damn lives. So
Yeah.
I would rather get it till I enjoy playing it, and it just becomes a living, breathing thing.
Yep.
Because a lot of things that start on the like acoustic guitar end up being something that is very personal and intimate, but it ends up being something totally different when you play it
Exactly.
out. So the drummer of that band was but anyways, Marco joined. He was down for what I was doing.
Sounds
And
good.
Jason from Rhonda's a Dead Bitch, Witch Elm, Troposphere,
Yep.
he had kind of started playing drums a year or two prior, and he said I'd give it a shot. We played our third show, and he just was like, it's not for me, right?
Yep.
And and I had set up studio time, and I had a big show coming up with Night Demon.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap, like this is only like 2 months away, both of these things.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have a drummer. Like, what
Yeah,
do I
man.
do? Like, I hadn't put any money down yet on the recording time, but
It's all
I've-
scheduled out.
yeah, it's
stuff.
all scheduled
You
out.
don't want to be that guy that drops back out. And
Yeah, that sucks. But so Marco was like, oh, let's ask Clint, and he's like, he's in a few different things,
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I didn't really think to have you ask him. I know you know him, but it would be sweet. He's like, no, let me just ask him. And he talked to him, and he's like, yep, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, hey, I need you for this show with Night Demon. And he's like, sweet, because he's a fan.
Yep.
And I need you for the recording. And he was like, all right, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, after that, you can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to, like, totally separate after that, I can understand.
Yeah.
You weren't really presented like, hey, do you want to play this? You were just like, Mark was like, hey, can you do me a favor?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was like, I don't know, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think. So, like, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, dude. You got a couple of awesome guys backing you up in the sleepover. That's for damn sure.
Yep. And yeah, and they're in Unity now with you. So,
Yep.
I'm gonna utilize them when I can. I kind of hope Unity takes off, and gets bigger and bigger shows. But that's just the way things are. And like I work with a couple other guys right now, just if Marco and Clint can't do it, just because sometimes there are things that come up that from a sleepover standpoint we really need to play, but we
yeah, I mean, we mentioned it,
we
like,
need to do it. Yeah.
Clint's in like 5 bands or whatever, and Marco was for a while running for governor.
Yep.
And then he was running for what was it, state attorney?
Yep.
Does that sound right? Yeah, that was right.
So we released our album in August of 2017. Shortly later, played Iowa Public Radio.
Yeah,
and that was
Studio One.
Yeah, that was a thing that came out of Twitter.
Yeah,
and
with Tony Daner.
Yeah,
Tony's like the best on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy. I love him to death.
And I'm
man.
not good at Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, especially now. Like, I used to be better, because I sent stuff to radio stations, and they say that's usually a good way to keep a bug in their ear.
Yeah, because
that you still exist.
Directly directly notifies them that you are trying to get a hold of them. It's kind of nice.
Yep. I'm more into Instagram lately. I don't know why. I like seeing what bands are up to.
Yeah.
Rather than like seeing politics and stuff on Twitter and all that stuff. So
I could totally see that.
So I've kind of went off I'm on Facebook. Facebook.com/the original Sleepover.
I think that's right.
I think that's what it is. You can fact check me later, but and then on Instagram I'm the.sleepover.
Yeah.
And we're on Spotify and iTunes.
Because you and Clint Marco
Amazon,
got that
all
album
that stuff.
recorded, and
Yep.
you ended up putting that on like everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Yep.
So I mean, you can definitely check out the Sleepovers material on. It is on Spotify, and I remember
it's kind of hard to find because there are other bands called the Sleepover.
Yeah, and it was weird because there was like, I remember seeing like there was bands called Sleepover.
Yep.
And there was also like the Sleepover, and there was a couple of those.
And there's the Hong Kong Sleepover, which I did a album review on.
Oh yeah.
they're kind of cool too, but yeah, and on Songkick we're the Sleepover, and in brackets US.
Okay.
So you can follow us there. That I've linked that up somehow, so like anytime I post, somehow it knows I'm playing a show.
Yeah, your Facebook was the Sleepover official. So
Yep.
Yeah, and it's got a picture of you on there with I believe, right, with Clint and Marco.
Yeah. We so the album came out August 2017. Yep, that picture's from the Mohawk. We went to Austin. Like, we didn't have our intent was to have CDs in hand.
Yep.
And I was like burning CDs on the way down there because I had it mastered. I just didn't have the production time.
Yep.
Was like a few days later than
Yeah.
I expected. So like, and while I was in Texas, they arrived at my door.
Oh man.
So that sucked. But I went down because his Clint's band Speedrun was playing, and Marco was helping him out with that too to play the Austin Music
Yeah.
Classic Video Game Fest.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I'm the only one preventing the Sleepover to play down there,
Exactly.
so there's no like, I'll help with gas or whatever you guys need so that I can play a show because, you know, part of it, I know other musicians have mentioned, like, it's good to just say you've played a place,
Yeah.
you know, and the Mohawk is like, you know, Randy Newman, or not Randy Newman, but Gary Newman was like playing the next week
Oh,
from
that's
the
sweet.
Cars, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, like they have two stages. One kind of, the stage we played on looked like something straight out of Red Green.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
like a stuff like porcupine or whatever,
Yeah,
and a
man.
bear.
Possum Lodge.
Yeah, dude. So like, we got pretty hammered at that show. There wasn't a whole lot of people there, even though like I like promoted the crap out of it. I promoted it as like Speedrun was gonna play,
Yep.
and then the Sleepover wasn't going to be the headlining. It was just going to open, right?
Yep.
Because they already played the Classic Video Game Fest. It was just ending. And then the guitar player, Eric, who lives in Austin, he was starting a job the next day. So he had to back out. So I like found like this like kid that opened up the Austin Classic Game Fest. And he just played guitar and had like a bunch of program beats, but he had like the Michael Jackson thing.
Oh, that's nuts.
He had the whole 80s thing going on, and he had
That's
just
cool.
moved back to Austin, and he was trying to find a foot in to play music again.
Oh, cool.
And so like I was like, hey man, will you open for the Sleepover? We
Yeah.
had a band drop and stuff, and he's like, that would be so awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so he ended up doing his thing. The people that were there like were either people I messaged directly that I had no idea who they were on Facebook.
Yeah.
And still are people that I communicate with today. Like there's still like
That's cool.
fans of some sort, you know?
Yeah.
And some, you know, maybe a handful of people from that Classic Game Fest. But we had a video game console set up at the bar.
Oh, sweet.
So the bartender ran this thing on Sundays where they had like once a month they had like Super Nintendo, all these games you could play.
Yeah.
So it was just the coolest show I think I've played. There wasn't a whole lot of people there because like kind of how I marketed it, it was for Speedrun and they couldn't play, so that kind of sucked. But you know, I had updated the flyers and stuff before I handed them out and whatnot. But
yeah.
But yeah, we did that. We did the State Fair, Iowa Public Radio.
The State Fair's pretty sweet.
Hopefully we do the State Fair again. I'm looking to play like new places, like outside of Des Moines. So if anybody that's listening like knows of a bar or whatever that you want to see the Sleepover. I guess I didn't even say what kind of music it is. It's like rock, punk influences from like 70s, 80s.
Yep.
I know Marco and Clint bring the metal, and I bring more like the punk rock influences and stuff.
Yep.
But they still mesh at some point.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
still does a lot.
Like Ving from Fear, he's like one of my favorite musicians and stuff. Marco was like, yeah, did you know Megadeth, who was also like one of my childhood favorite bands, is like, you know, like Megadeth did Ving was the singer, and they called it MD45.
MD45,
And I was like, what? So I was just like listening to that before I came here.
Oh,
and
cool.
I was like, so there is crossover between that.
Uh-huh.
And I agree, there should be a variety of music. It's just venues want to draw people, and they know they're taking a bigger risk if they have different types of music playing.
Yeah.
Because you end up with something you said earlier, like in one of your other podcasts about podcast episodes, where it'd be cool to have like hip hop guy, you know, and all this other stuff, but the the thing that you could run into is like, well, they all clear out after they see
Exactly.
the style of music they like. So,
Yep.
trying to be a little bit more cognizant of that this year, and I've always tried to play with bands that I would want to go see. So
Uh-huh.
if people ask me to play, I try to stick with what I know I would pay money
Yeah,
to go
you'd
see.
pay money to go see it, so then
Yep.
people that come to pay money to see you get a full
Yeah,
experience. Yep.
and then I'm not like, if I invite a friend to play to one of my shows and it just happens to not be like that big of a show, I don't feel bad because I'm like, I'm
Exactly.
giving you
Yeah.
like something that's special that you're gonna come home with, and a lot of my friends that do go to the shows, I know they like the type of music
Yep.
of the other bands that are playing, and I'm like, I know they're gonna buy this like touring musician's album.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
like most touring bands I play with are not like disappointed if there's a not that great of a turnout, because there might be 10 people there, but they're all buying merch.
Yeah, there's 10 people that all enjoyed the
So
stuff.
that, like, to me, that's, for a band perspective, that's probably a better show for them.
Yeah.
From a venue perspective, maybe not.
Yeah.
I think 50 is like the magic number for most of the smaller clubs that
Yeah.
they want in there drinking booze. But you bring in friends that drink a lot of beer.
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
then they usually invite you back.
Yeah,
So
that'll even it all out.
But yeah, so what's up? We don't have any shows coming up that I have booked yet. We've been asked to play a couple shows, but I just haven't found the fit yet.
Yep.
I'm sure Three Finger Betty's going to be a band I'm going to be playing to get
Yeah.
quite a few times, like we usually try to do.
Yeah, man. We fit in pretty well together.
And releasing an album later this year.
Oh, cool.
Probably record it by March is my goal. And get out of Des Moines and play some shows to try to support it. Hit the cities that we've already played before that know us, and
Yeah.
get
I
some
mean,
more people out there.
That's like a little bit of a call to arms, because even though like we are in Des Moines, and Des Moines is kind of seen as like the quote unquote epicenter of where the music's at in Iowa, there's certainly other places we could play where there's plenty of good music that,
Yep.
like, I wouldn't mind playing, Quad Cities, Omaha, Cedar Rapids / Waterloo, Cedar, that'd be Cedar Falls, Waterloo, Cedar Rapids. I mean, we like Three Finger Betty played Iowa City one time. Wouldn't mind going back.
Yep.
I mean, there's smaller towns, like I wouldn't mind giving like Ottumwa a chance. Go down to like Keokuk or something. And
Yeah.
like, you played a show in Burlington last year, I believe.
Yeah, the Washington. That's a pretty sweet place.
Yeah.
And that was pouring, but the people in there bought merch.
Yeah, dude.
And they got to see a killer show.
Exactly.
And they told us afterwards, man, I love whatever band from Des Moines.
Yep.
But you guys also kick it. And I don't usually listen to punk rock or whatever, but
yeah,
pretty sweet, And that kind of stuff, like, that comes home with you.
Yeah, dude.
And that fuels you to make more music and keep going. And you need that. Like, so if you're ever at a show and you notice their turnout's not that great, compliment somebody. It might mean a lot.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if you enjoy it, just go tell the person you enjoy it, because I don't know. I always thought that was one of those weird things where, like, there's no reason I should think something's awesome and then just keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason I should go to a show, have somebody, like, pour their heart and soul out, enjoy it a bunch, and then just go home and not tell them I enjoyed it, because it takes a lot of creative talent to just get out there and do it, first off, and then, just having the feedback is necessary just to let people know, why you came, how you found out about the band, anything. Just like, oh, this is my 4th time I've seen you, or I drove an hour to see you. Like, sometimes even that stuff. Like, I live out in the sticks, and driving down here, and it's like, yeah, I drove 2 hours to pay $5 to see a bar band, and these bar bands are like, are you serious? It's like, well, I've driven more, spent more, and had way less yielded out of the night, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and at that Austin show, I just happened to see someone in Des Moines that we knew.
Oh, no way.
Was on Facebook or whatever, like, seeing their brother or whatever, so I invited them to the show and they came out.
Dude, that's awesome.
So it was like, that was the coolest thing ever.
That is so awesome.
And Lefties, I played a show and they're like, yeah, we came up from Kansas City to see you. I'm like, what?
That's insane.
Like, that's a long ways. He's like, I'm sorry I didn't he messaged me after the show. He's like, "I'm sorry I didn't talk to you after the show. I'm super socially awkward and stuff, but
Yeah, like we all aren't.
you guys should play a show in Kansas City sometime." I'm like, "We will."
Yeah, definitely.
Like, so it's crazy. I mean, just don't undersell yourself, and you don't
Exactly.
have to play in a bar necessarily. You can
No.
play a house show.
Yeah, dude.
Like one of my favorite shows this last year was at my friend Brian's house, who was a door guy at Lefty's, and it was huge.
Yeah.
It was like the purpose of the show was, hey, I want to have some bands play at like a welcoming for my house,
Yep.
and stuff, and we ended up playing with a lot of people that were maybe part of like the jam band crowd,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so we were very different.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have acoustic instruments. We thought we were gonna blow their roof off, which we kind of did,
Yeah.
but people dug it.
Exactly.
And the cops didn't get called, and no one did anything stupid.
Yeah.
And so like even touring, like I would love to play house shows. Like
man.
play some sleepovers. That would be pretty cool.
Dude, the sleepover playing sleepovers. Call it the sleepover tour.
Yep.
I'll only play a show at your house if I can crash on your couch.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's-
So if you
so
got a
it's-
couch.
Yes. That's awesome. So you got all the social media. I know you've got a Twitter account as well for the sleepover. I don't know exactly what is it, T.sleepover.
I think it's like TSO sleepover.
Yeah, you're on there.
It's weird, but yeah, you can find it.
You got all your stuff online for the sleepover.
Yep, you got a YouTube channel. You got a couple of
Yeah.
video or two
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, your music video's got quite a few views, man. There's a copy of me.
Yeah, copy of me. It's just like in the basement where we play.
Yeah, man.
And there's a kid. That was kind of a fun story too. So Marco took a video radio broadcasting
Yep.
course at Des Moines DMU or whatever downtown, and so he knew the professor there, and he hooked us up with this kid that needed to do a project, and he was doing a music video.
That's awesome.
He's like 17. The guy that did that video, you should go and check it out, but he's like 17 years old.
That's sweet.
And he's like, I don't go to shows. Like, I'm like, what kind of music do you like? He's like, you wouldn't know it. I'm like, I check it out,
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, it's a totally different style of music. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I respect your opinion.
Yeah.
And he came down, and I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't because if I was a 17-year-old kid and I was like to walk down those stairs,
Yeah.
like I'd be like, oh god, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like this is it. I'm dead.
That's-
Because as a young person, like even in your 20s, going to try out for a band,
Yep.
like on the east side, and that show, I was living in. Or that tryout, I was living in Fort Dodge at the time.
Yeah.
They came and picked my ass up,
Oh, jeez.
and it had like broken out window. I don't know why my mom let me like jump in the car,
That's
but
insane.
I broken out window. He didn't. I think I had to give him like a few dollars gas because like
Yeah.
he was broke. Like
Oh, God.
whatever, and that is fine. But we had a nice talk. I mean, we became friends instantly over that.
Yep.
He ended up becoming a carny later, so I don't know. I'm thinking he's still alive somewhere, but
yeah.
but anyways, yeah, he drove me out there, and just going and like them first of all warning me about the drummer and stuff, and how his bedside manner's not the best.
Yeah.
And, don't let him freak you out or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like that's I know I've talked a lot, but you can always, if you want to hear any of my stories again or whatever, I'm always willing to talk about it. But
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much brings you up to today.
Yeah. I mean, like it's also kind of crazy that you're from near where I'm from. I mean,
Yep.
you're from Fort Dodge, and I'm from Humboldt, and then I didn't meet you till I started playing music in Des Moines, and you
Yeah.
were playing music with a buddy of mine that I grew up with, and so it's like, I mean, you and Clint were from close to the same. It's just kind of a neat thing. So I don't know.
And I know other Fort Dodge musicians too that you haven't interviewed yet, so I can give you a heads up.
Yeah, feel free to
on
point me in the
people
right direction.
to check out that influenced me.
Yeah,
big time,
totally.
Too, because before I even auditioned for stuff, I didn't know if I was auditioning. I showed up to people's practices,
Yeah.
because I was so into music. I just wanted to be around it,
Uh-huh.
know. And so I like watched people play like different bands and stuff before I even really
Yeah.
got the bug to do it.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, it's just great talking to you. I mean, like we have talked quite a bit, but I don't think we've talked like nearly this in depth ever before. So so it is awesome to actually get to talk to you,
Well,
even though I've known you for like 2 years,
yeah,
you
and
know.
you usually have to jet after you play,
Yeah.
especially when it's like 1:30 in the morning and you got
Yeah. Especially
college class or
yeah,
whatever the
especially those
next day.
weeknight shows. Some of those were horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just complain a little bit on my Snapchat about it and just go
Yeah.
about my
Pay
day.
your dues and get better
Exactly.
time slots and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
better
man.
pay.
It's just the way it always works that way, man. You just gotta try. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, that sounds like it's your story too. You
Yep.
just had to go out there and try.
Go out there and plug yourself, just get yourself out there and you're the best thing, that ever happened. That's how you have to really
Exactly.
approach it. Whether you just got to believe in
Yeah,
yourself, really. Like,
exactly.
I used to be a very self-deprecating person,
Oh yeah.
and all that does is prevent you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I feel like unless you channel it the correct way, it's a huge hindrance. And like I used to look at it that way too, where I just I don't know. I was always super hard on myself, but it's what forced me to get better, because it's like if I don't want to be hard on myself, I've got to at least try harder, so then I can say I at least tried. And then if I try, then I don't know, because I had so much through my 20s, I would just give up on stuff that I like wasn't good at initially, and I realized that it takes more work than that initial 5 minutes you put into something, So then you have to just try a little bit, and at least if you put your best foot forward and tried, you have that.
Yeah.
So there's some
I'm
positivity.
sure my parents wasted lots of money on me for my different little
Oh,
things. Like, I want to do taekwondo, or like I want to do this, and then like you not stick with it.
Yeah.
And then when you're older and they're like, hey, we saved all your stuff, and they like unload garbage bags
Yeah.
in your like little small space that you can that you
Yeah.
have already, and you're like, I'm never gonna go through this stuff. Like, I need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like, I see all. I think this is your way of saying like, we raised you good, right?
Yeah.
Because
look at all this money
look
we
at
spent
all
on.
this stuff we've spent on you. Like, and my parents weren't like wealthy or anything.
Yeah.
They just like wanted to give what they could.
Bingo. Yeah. I mean,
Except for a guitar, which they ended up doing, and like I said,
Yeah.
in college. But like, oh man, they probably hated me. Like I just blasting music and stuff as a
sometimes
rebellious statement.
yeah, I wonder what my parents think about that sometimes. Like buying me a guitar, was it a mistake or was it a good thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like now, probably it's a good thing, but when
And
I
my
was,
kids, I mean, I hear them banging on the drums or whatever downstairs, and it's like, man, I think I did something right.
heck yeah,
Like, I mean, obviously there's other stuff that annoys me, but
yeah,
but when it comes to music, my wife sometimes might not like it, but I'm like, all right, but
Yeah.
they're into art just as much as my wife is too. So.
that's awesome. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I'll
anytime.
put links to everything in the description below. Just send them my way, and I'm pretty sure I know most of where all your stuff is. But if you got any special links you want me to share, just let me know.
All right, sounds
All right,
good.
sweet. Thanks for
Thanks,
doing
Peter.
the podcast. Boom. Have a good day, man.
Yep.
Huge shout out to Emery Brown for meeting up with me to do the podcast. I had a great time. Sometimes it's not always easy to meet up with people because schedules change, etc. But we got it done. We got together, had a cup of coffee before the show, and ended up recording a great one. Nice guy. I absolutely love hanging out with Emery. I've known him for about 2 years, and I just never really sat down and talked personally with him too much, other than at shows. I see him quite a bit, but it's always great to sit down with a friend and talk to them about their history and stuff like that. So thanks, Emery. Appreciate you sitting down with me and doing the podcast. If you want to check out all of Emery's stuff, I got it in the descriptions down below. There's a ton of Sleepover stuff everywhere. I hope I shared all of the best parts. I mean, there's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He's on Spotify. They got YouTube. There's that music video that we talked about a little bit on. That's on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go to that YouTube channel and check out their YouTube. Emery's got stuff everywhere. So shout out to Emery one more time. Super appreciate him doing the podcast with me. I have decided that if anybody wants to do any sort of sponsorship for the podcast, I'd be more than willing to do a read before and after the interview for any company that's willing to shoot me a few bucks and support what I do, and I'd be more than willing to support what you do. I'd prefer it be something kind of relating to the music community, but I've sent some feelers out here and there to a few people, and we'll see what happens. If anybody wants to do any sort of a sponsorship for the podcast, or maybe just do an advertisement for 1 week and see what happens, just shout at me, let me know what you think. I got some great podcasts coming up. Just send me an email, we'll figure it all out. I got an email for Audible Farm at audiblefarm@gmail.com, so either that or just hit me up on social media. We'll get some of the details worked out. So appreciate everybody listening this far. Thanks again to Emery. Super shout out for meeting me and doing the podcast. So thanks everybody. We'll check you next week.